Hi, this is Sanaz Shiraz. Welcome to this podcast. Today with me, I have the wonderful Nicole Vilaca. Today joining from Turkey, but she's actually a traveler all around the globe. She is a web designer and the CEO of the company The Simply Social, and she helps women entrepreneurs to bring their business online. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for having time for us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. Yeah, it's a little bit of a rainy day here in Istanbul, but other than that, I'm doing really great. Thank you.
Lovely. Wow. So I'm fascinated by searching and finding journeys. I mean, many of my clients come to me for the searching and finding that particular person, the partner, the man. But when we work together, then it's always come also to other aspects, so which are very universal for many of us humans. So searching for that dream, finding the dream, searching for the home or a new home and finding a new home, searching and finding a purpose, right? So in life. And we are, in this journey in different stations. And many of us have this longing, and that's not only like about the partner, but also I would love to do stuff I love to do, or I want to like really be self-expressed, or I want to travel a lot. And I really was inspired by your story. How is your story of searching and finding?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will try to give you the somewhat short version of it. Um, but I always had this feeling just in my gut that I was not cut out to do what everyone else that I saw in my home country of Canada was doing. So that's kind of the very general overview. Going into a little bit more detail about what that actually looked like. So I was finishing university, this is years back, finishing university. And then the thing that most people do, and I just want to say I was very lucky to figure out what I actually wanted from life pretty early on in life. Um, but I mean, regardless of the stage that you're at, you can always change where you're at if you're not happy. But so I was finishing university, and just like everybody else who I knew, I was going into a corporate job or some type of job, maybe in my field or just really something that you could find, even if it wasn't related to your field, just something that you could find to make some money. So I ended up being lucky enough to go into a job that was somewhat related to my field. Um, and my dream growing up in Canada was always to work downtown in Toronto in a corporate job. And that was the dream. And I'm not from Toronto initially. I'm from a much smaller town of about 1,000 people. It's a farming community. So the Toronto lifestyle was the big dream for me throughout high school, university. I was like, if I can do this, I've made it in life. And funnily enough, I actually never got to Toronto. I got that full-time position almost right out of school in my hometown, right beside my hometown. So about 100,000 people. So it wasn't Toronto, but it wasn't the small town. So I was like, okay, this is good for now. I did that job for, I'm going to say about a year, which is not a long time at all. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is not something that I can be doing for the rest of my life. I had only been in that position for 1 year. And I realized I can't sit at a desk and I can't do something that I'm not 100% passionate about, because I was passionate about it. I had studied it a little bit in school. Um, but it was stressful and it was just not the working environment that I wanted. So I'm the type of person um, who is very go for it. And if I knew that no one else was going to make the change for me, of course, I was the one that had to actually figure out what is it that I want from life? What do I want to do? How can I make this change? Because I cannot sit in an office for the next, 40, 50, whatever, maybe only 30, I don't know, amount of years. My math skills are clearly not the greatest. But I just knew I couldn't do it. And so I started, after only a year of being in this position, I started looking for other options of what I could do to actually leave Canada. I had always felt like Canada was just too small for me. There's only about five. I mean, it's a big country, so that sounds interesting, but there's only about five major cities. And compared to the States or a lot of other countries, they're not huge cities. So I knew that I wanted, a city of 10 million or 5 million, and I wanted something a lot bigger, and I wanted to get out there in the world and see things and meet people from other places. And Canada was just not doing that for me, along with not being happy in the position that I was in and not wanting to sit behind a desk for the rest of my life. So I started looking for other opportunities. And I ended up, the easiest thing that I could find at the time was to teach English abroad. And so I had quite a few different options of where I wanted to go. I ended up settling after it took about a year's time with all the paperwork and whatnot and settling on where I wanted to go. I ended up settling on Shenzhen, China, which is right across the bay from Hong Kong, to give you a bit of a visual of where it's located. And it's a city of 10 million, 12 million, something like that. So much bigger than any city that is in Canada. And I was like, perfect, this is exactly what I want. So I ended up moving to China in 2017. And I really did not know what to expect. I had never been to Asia before. But it was interesting because I remember before I had moved to China, of course, I was telling friends and family and whatnot. And I remember multiple adults, and I'm sure my friends as well, but I remember multiple adults, like my family and my friends' parents, telling me, oh, that's so interesting that you're going to move, across the world and teach. I know someone that did that and they loved it and they did it for 2 years and then they came home, or they loved it and then they did it for the year and they finished their contract and then they came home. And I just remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, I hope that's not me. That will be the worst case scenario if I come home after 1 or 2 years. I know it's always a good backup to have if something goes wrong or I don't like it. But I just remember thinking, like, I don't want that to be me. Like, I want to establish a life abroad, and that doesn't have to necessarily be in China, but I just knew that I didn't want to come back to Canada. So I ended up staying in, long story short, staying in China for about 4 years. And yeah, it was quite a while at the beginning. It's really easy to get caught up in, the lifestyle and everything's new and you're meeting people from all over the world. And then China, you have a lot of time off. So you have, I think it's about 4 months in total off. So you have a lot of time to travel and do different things. And even the job itself was a completely new experience. So I got caught up in that for quite some time. And this is where the story gets really interesting. I actually just wrote a book article about this the other day, because COVID happened. And it's funny because I actually remember being in my staff room at school of November of 2019. So right before it happened, it was happening in China at the time. And I remember somebody in my staff room saying, oh, in the north, there's like this deadly disease, and these two people had it and they died. And I remember them mentioning it, and we didn't know what COVID was. It didn't have a name at the time. And I just remember everyone in the staff room being like, it's fine, like it'll blow over, not a big deal. Yeah, didn't happen that way. So in January is Chinese New Year. So all of China was traveling, and that includes a lot of the expats in China. We will go to other countries in Asia and whatnot. So that's exactly what I had done. And I was outside of China. So when COVID got really bad in Asia, I started to think like, okay, I can't go to China. The pictures I was seeing of, the grocery stores having no food. And this was the first country it was really happening in. So I was like, there's no way I can go back to China. So I went home to Canada. And I was like, I'll be good here. There's no COVID right now. I think there was like one case in Canada. Very naive of me, but I was like, I'll be good here. And so I ended up staying in Canada, planning to go back to China. But in March of 2020, China closed its borders. So I was like, oh my gosh, I am stuck in Canada, which, yeah, I know now it seems like, duh, I should have realized that. But at the time, everything was happening so quickly and it was so new, and we had never had anything like this happen to the world before. So I just didn't know what to expect. So I got stuck in Canada for about 9 months in total, but I didn't know at the time how long I was going to be there. I was at home, I was living with my parents, and I was like, this is not, I don't want to be in Canada. I definitely don't want to be living with my parents in this tiny town of 1,000 people. So the first couple months were, I think probably everyone went through the same thing in the pandemic. I was kind of waiting for it to end. I wasn't sure what would happen. You're not really too sure. But as time dragged on, I realized, okay, I might not ever be able to go back to China where all of my stuff is, my cat is, my partner is, like my life is in China. I may not be able to go back. So I started figuring out, what can I do with my days? I'm doing absolutely nothing with my days, just sitting in the house because I can't leave. So I was like, let's be productive, let's do something. So that is where I found my passion for online business. And I've always had a passion for various different things online, but I never actually thought that I could turn it into a business and become an entrepreneur from that. So I took, some different courses. Some of them didn't work out. I tried e-commerce, tried a bunch of different things, but they didn't end up working out. But honestly, it led me to where I am today and to the business that I've established today. So, and this is a very long story short, but I try to find the silver lining in COVID and in lockdown and in such a difficult time, because I absolutely, without a doubt, know that if I had not been stuck in Canada, and this is where, everything happens for a reason. If I had not been stuck in Canada in that lockdown, I absolutely know that I would most likely still be in China. I would still be teaching. I was not happy teaching. It was not something I enjoyed. I was Ironically, when I went back to Canada, I was studying for a teaching exam so that I could get further certified to teach higher levels. And that was never, I didn't go to school to be a teacher. That was never something that was a calling to me, but it was just kind of there, and it was easy, and it was money, and I was already in China. So it was just kind of like the next obvious step, but it wasn't something that I actually took a step back until COVID, until I was really forced to in lockdown to take a step back and to realize, this is not me. This is not my personality. This is not something that I want or something I've ever wanted. Um, so, what is it that I actually want? And due to the lockdown, and through trial and error, like a lot of things didn't work when I started different things online, different other businesses that I had started. But I realized that it was something I was passionate about, and I liked sitting at my computer and doing, different things, whatever business I was working on. And I realized that that was where my passion lied. So I really credit the lockdown, honestly, and trying to find that silver lining in it, because I know that my life would be on a very different path had I not have been stuck in Canada. And like I said, everything, my mom has always said this, and I never believed it until, this kind of started happening, but everything really does happen for a reason. And now I can see all of these different areas. And when something happens in my life, I say, you know what, that happens for a reason, whether I see it in the future or I never see it. Everything is always happening for a reason. So that's kind of the past story. So now where I am today, I have left China and I can travel wherever I want because I work online. And for me, and it's different for everyone, all of my clients, I see something different that what they want. But for me, what I wanted was to travel and to be able to, work online and have a business online that I'm passionate about and that I enjoy and that I can help others, and also be able to live the lifestyle that I want, and to be able to live in less expensive countries, and to be able to do all of these things that have always been important to me. Um, And I know that had I not discovered online business, there is no way I would be sitting here right now talking to you while I'm in Turkey. So, yeah, I really credit the lockdown to kind of finding myself without even meaning to or realizing that it was going to happen, and trying to find that silver lining in that. So that's kind of the long story short of how I got to where I am and how I discovered my passion, because it was definitely not something that one day I just realized, hey, this isn't something that I enjoy doing. It took, the whole process of COVID and being locked out of China for 9 months and not knowing what was going to happen with my life, to actually discover what I wanted in life.
Oh my God, Nicole, that was an amazing, amazing story. Thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah.
And I give a lot of credit to you. Of course, the conditions happened as well. But if you allow me, my audience know the feminine masculine energy model, and I saw an amazing dance in your story and in your journey between these two. So like the feminine energy all like about intuition and creativity and heart, right? So like that is like those time you just knew this is not the way, and my heart beats actually for something else, for somewhere else. And then I love then also your very amazing healthy masculine energy to take you there, right? Like your intuition showed you, I want to go abroad, I want to be like traveling, I want to do the stuff I love and get to that new experiences. And many of us stops there. So because if we don't have like healthy masculine energy to get us there, so to start and doing that step, then won't nothing would happen. And then again, I love that you also kind of check in with yourself, either like just now that is this job is not the one I want. And again, like many of us stops there as well. It's like, okay, I should have, and for years, I mean, some people can stay in unhappy for years, and that's like, this is that what I like, the unhealthy stuff coming in, right? Like self beating up. Now you decided like this limiting beliefs, now deal with that. Your dad always said, just do that until you finish something. So I love that, like you just felt like you recreated yourself always and again, and you came back to that balance. And lovely example you brought about the COVID, so as all of us can connect what has changed in all of our lives. And I realized like recently as well, the most thing is I'm still in fight with that. I do not accept, like I kind of fight for my old life, before COVID. And this is what I love about your story, is that you took that uncertainty, like being in the middle of the air now again, right? And you could like again recreate from inside of you, okay, again from the like beginner's mind. So what now? So what is that is very, very juicy. Thank you so much for this inspiration. So it's like these are so many aspects of it which one or another of us are right now dealing with. So I how was it for you, like this balance? I mean, I know like that's has not always been easy. So those moments you probably also experience sometimes frustration, or I don't know, like just overwhelmed or confusion. So how is it for you, that experience? And you just then yeah, so what was it, a little more details about that?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because at the beginning of everything, when it was happening, and I was in Canada, and even before the borders of China were closed, I couldn't go back because it was such a bad situation in China. Obviously, that's where it started. So it was really bad at the time, and going back wasn't an option. And it was a lot of uncertainty. And also, I think at that time I was okay with it because I hadn't been home for a while. And so I was visiting people and seeing friends and seeing family. But then it slowly transitioned. And once China closed its borders and once the rest of the world, it got really serious and essentially the whole world was in a lockdown, it changed from that, oh, I'm happy to be home and see my family because it's been a while, to uncertainty, especially once China closed its borders. Because as I mentioned, I had absolutely everything. My whole life was in China. I didn't even have a pair of jeans at home, honestly. And I was in Canada in February, so I needed winter clothes. But I didn't have anything there. You know, my cat was in China. My apartment, I was paying rent in China. My job was in China. I had a partner at the time he wasn't actually in China. He was in his home country. But we were both trying to get back to China because that's where our lives were. So it was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of, I mean, you don't have any distractions because it's COVID and I wasn't working and I'm just sitting around all day. And so it was a lot of overthinking things and anxiety. But again, I think, and this is not something that I really intentionally did, honestly, it just kind of happened this way. But again, everything happens for a reason. They all sorted themselves out in a way. So the biggest one that comes to mind for me is my partner at the time. Um, we were kind of falling apart before COVID and whatnot. So then him being at home in his home country and me being in Canada, and like the stress of that, and us just not having been good for quite a while before that, just led to us kind of ending things. And at the time, it was really not something that was easy for either of us because we were both in lockdown and we both wanted to get to China and we didn't know when we would be able to do that. But it all worked itself out because that relationship was something that was no longer serving me and no longer serving him. And whatever happened there and how we ended happened for a reason. And just to fast forward a little bit in terms of relationships, I ended up going back to China in October of 2020. So I was in Canada for about 9 months. There was a short window where you could kind of get back to China. So I took that opportunity and ran with it, did the quarantine, all of that fun stuff. And then I was in China for about 3 or 4 months. And I met my partner now, it's such a better relationship. And again, like really everything happens for a reason. And the funny thing is, my partner now, I had met him 4 years ago when I first came to China. My first like 3 months in China, we had met at a gathering with friends and we had said hi, and that was kind of it. And then we didn't talk further for 4 years. And then as soon as I come back to China, within 3 or 4 months or whatnot, we really randomly met again at his roommate's birthday. And, it was just, it was such a funny series of coincidences how we met again. And now, he's in Turkey with me, like sitting in the other room. So it's just funny how things work out with that. And so I think it's very difficult for me to say that during COVID and during everything that was happening in lockdown, like it was great and everything that was happening sucked, but it was happening for a reason. But now looking back on hindsight, I can really see that everything that happened, and me being locked out and my relationship ending, and even me having to give up my cat and give it to somebody else because I ended up going back to China and not wanting to stay long term. So it didn't make sense for me to have a cat. So everything that kind of transpired during the lockdown happened for a reason. And honestly, I wouldn't change, and I would never expect for me to say this to myself during the lockdown, but I wouldn't change anything because in terms of, jobs and discovering what I want to do with my life and my relationship and even my cat and my apartment and teaching and realizing that wasn't something I wanted to do, it all happened for a reason. So it was very, very much so an anxious time. But looking back on it now, I can realize that that is what was supposed to happen. And maybe, that's the way it was supposed to be. Maybe that's just me trying to make something good out of something bad. I don't know. But, I'm just going to roll with that's how it was supposed to be.
Wow. Wow. Like, again, thank you for bringing also that dimension of the personal one also to the light. And what I take or I would like highlight in your share is the trust. So what I hear is has the actually kind of the trusting in the process that will be something good will out of it. That was also your deep down convenience, or even when those times it was not very obvious. Amazing, amazing, Nicole. Thank you so much for sharing this amazing story. And as you mentioned, I mean, your dream is like being able to travel and doing an online business, but you are realizing it now. For again, COVID brought the challenge for many people that even when they have a like very small local business, or like I'm coming from, for example, therapeutic dance is a dance class. It's like a traditional way is of course in person, and you have in a small group in the community. However, the COVID calls for new ways and the different way of thinking. And you, for example, help local businesses, also small businesses, or to come online. That's the way maybe they are absolutely not familiar with, and for them it was before was not even thinkable. How do you help people? What are they? How do you help them? What is usually a client can expect once to coming to you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have two areas of my business, and I'll explain those in a second. But the fact that it's online business, like I mentioned, is really something that I discovered throughout COVID. And online business is something that I have always been passionate about. Anytime, a new software comes out or I hear about someone mentions, oh, this is great for this, I'm always there to sign up for the free trial and see what it's all about. So I've always kind of had that aspect of being so interested in different platforms and softwares and how they can integrate and how you can use them with your website and other platforms. And it's a little bit nerdy sometimes, but it's something that I've always been interested in. So COVID really gave me the opportunity to realize that online business was something I was passionate about. So all of the people that I work with who are my clients, I always make sure that it's something that they're actually passionate about, that they are starting their business in. So the one area that I started my business in is mentorship. So what I do is I mentor usually female entrepreneurs who have a business presence physically, and they need to bring that online. And really saw this, of course, during COVID, when everyone immediately, it was just not an option. You had to bring your business online because otherwise you would be going out of business if you only had that physical presence, brick and mortar retail business. So I helped a lot of these women because they didn't know where to start in the online world. And I helped them to bring their business online. And that does look different for every business, and depending on who they target and how much foot traffic they get and all of these different things. But I help them to bring their business online, to understand social media, websites, how they can integrate different platforms into their socials, their sites, CRMs, all of these different tools that they can use and how they integrate together to bring their business online and to also get seen online as well. So it's kind of the social and then the online aspect of online presence. And so I would mentor them in various different ways. Like I said, it looked different for every business somewhat, but I would mentor them in that respect. And then from that, what I realized is a lot of these women either didn't know how and didn't care to know how, which is valid because they are busy with running their business, or they just didn't want to create a website. So the website component is now something that I'm focusing on more in my business. And it's funny because that actually came from a need from the mentorship. I would see them saying, okay, I'm too busy, or I don't know how, or I have the time, but I don't really want to waste my time on learning how, this whole website platform works and getting all the photos and the copy and everything together. So I started the website component and the web design component of my business out of a need for what I saw from the women that I was mentoring. So now I have my mentorship clients that I work with, and now I'm focusing more on the web design aspect of my business, which is also very fitting because, like I mentioned, I love integrating, all the different softwares and trying out new softwares. I'm actually trying out a new web design software right now, and it's really fun to play around with. It looks beautiful. So the web design is kind of where I realized that I want to focus on more right now because it's more suited towards me and what I enjoy. And again, this is just the process of, I started online business in 2020 during the lockdown, and I started with e-commerce and I realized that wasn't for me. And then I did something else. I realized that wasn't for me. And then I stuck with that for a bit and I realized that wasn't for me. So it's just a process of trial and error and figuring out what it is you actually want to do. As humans, we are always evolving and we're always changing. And I think it doesn't have to be, oh, you're changing your mind every month or every 6 months or whatnot. It's you're changing what you're passionate about and what you want to do and how you want to help people. And so that's how I choose to see it. But yeah, starting from that e-commerce, which was not really where my passion lied, but at the time that was the online business that I knew the most about. So that's kind of where I started, and it's evolved into me finding where does my passion really truly lie, and that is in helping entrepreneurs online through my mentorship and through web design. But I would really encourage anybody who is just starting out on this journey on, figuring out what they want to do and maybe having their own business and becoming an entrepreneur and helping people, serving people, whether that's online or in person. Really take a look at what is it you're passionate about, and then how can you help people through that. And that will always grow and change and evolve like it has for my journey. But it might not, it'll look different. It might take you 2 years to realize, okay, I have built out this whole aspect of my business, and now I want to move on to another aspect area of my business where I can continue to help and serve and maybe level up in your business. And it looks different for everybody, but always growing, changing, and evolving, I really think is the key.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nicola. I will add your information below this video so that people can find you. It's an amazing niche. Also, your addressing for those who want to go to the online, they are not familiar with the technical part, especially, or they need someone to accompany them, because that's also could be a scary step. And it's amazing that you also offer the whole package. So for those who just, can you please do that for me with this whole website thing? I know many of colleagues of mine, many of clients of me. That was amazing having you. Thank you so much, and all the best for the rest of the journey of becoming.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here, and thank you once again.
I love it. Ciao.